Hey guys. All right, so today I'm here to talk with you about a topic that I know you have probably struggled with in previous grades, and that is embedding quotations into your own writing. This is one of those things that, as teachers, we kind of bang our heads into the wall trying to figure out what to do to actually really teach you guys how to use text, how to use quotations correctly. So, we're going to spend a lot of time this year. One of my major goals for year-long AP is that when you leave this class at the end of this year, that you absolutely understand how to use text as part of your own sentences, how you blend quotations into your own writing. When you get to college, you are going to need this skill in multiple subjects, not just English. You're going to need it this semester in AP Lang and in AP Gov. And I don't want you to be nervous when you're embedding quotes. I don't want you to be nervous about punctuation. I don't want you to be nervous about any of that. So today, the getting to know you activity is actually an activity that will require you to embed some text. This is just so I can sort of see how you're doing with it. It's a pretty lighthearted activity, so you should be fine. But before we get to that later in the lesson, I do want to take some time to review some information about this. The internet is absolutely loaded with information on embedding text, all sorts of examples, all sorts of things. So if you're struggling with it, do a little bit of self-learning and see what you can find, but ask questions. Even as you're doing an assignment, if you want to add a comment and ask me, does the period go here? What about this? Is this where a question mark goes? Does this go inside or outside of the quotation marks? Ask me those questions. Just make a comment off to the side, and then I can answer your questions, not in real time, but in a timely manner. And so hopefully you'll learn how to do it correctly. The one thing I will always ask, though, is if I give you feedback and if you realize you've been doing something wrong, try not to make that same mistake over and over again. Be cognizant of it and try to learn and grow. I really think that you can leave this year knowing how to do this perfectly. But that's only going to be if you pay attention and really try to learn and grow. So I'm not going to read every word on this because, as I said before, you are AP students and you know how to read. But I do want to talk to you just a little bit about a couple of things and give you an example of embedding quotations before you practice today with embedding quotations. So here is one of the most important things. This sentence right here: you should never have a quotation standing alone as a complete sentence. If you're quoting something, you cannot have a sentence that is just quotation. So again, you should never have a quotation standing alone as a complete sentence. I'll call those floating quotations because they do not have any of your words holding them down. Think of the quote as a balloon, your words as the string, and without your words, the quotation is just floating up into the air without being held into the paper. It's your paper. Don't give an entire sentence of your paper to someone else's words. Yours have to be in it. And then it gives us an or worse as an incomplete sentence. Like, please don't give me what you say as a sentence, but it's a fragment quote. That's gross. Okay, we don't want that. The quotation will seem disconnected from your own thoughts and the flow of the sentences. And then it says ways to integrate quotations properly into your own sentence with the use of correct punctuation are explained below. You'll hear this as integrating quotations, embedding quotations. I will often say, please embed the quotation into your commentary. Your commentary is just your words. Integrating, blending, any of those are fine. Introducing can be something that we say, but you do not want a standalone, or as I call it, a floating quotation. That's a no-no in AP. You cannot in AP exceed an assignment if you have floating quotations. An exceeds assignment does not float quotations. All right, so this tells you there are at least 4 ways to integrate quotations. There are dozens of ways to integrate quotations, but these are 4 that work grammatically. I am not going to read all of it to you. So the first one is to introduce the quotation with a complete sentence and then a colon. And they give you some examples here of that. I think that's a little weak. It's kind of a cop-out. It's basically almost you putting it as its own sentence, but you're cheating a little bit by putting a quotation. So it's not my favorite. It's absolutely useful at times and has its purposes, but it would not be the one that I would want you to spend a lot of time doing. But there are examples on this document, which I will make sure that I post in the classroom so that you can look at them pretty carefully. This is an easy rule to remember. If you use a complete sentence to integrate a quotation or introduce a quotation, you need a colon after the sentence. Be careful not to confuse a colon with a semicolon. Using a comma in this situation would cause a comma splice, and you cannot do that. Comma splices are a no-no in AP and in writing just in general. All right, so in this one, number 2, it says to use an introductory or explanatory phrase, but not a complete sentence separated from the quotation by a comma. So this one, you're introducing the quote. You're putting a few of your own words, comma, and then the quotation. So this would be a quotation at the beginning of a sentence. And that's a pretty good one. And honestly, most of you can already do this. It goes through about where to use commas. You don't always need a comma before the quotation starts. It's only if someone is actually saying something that you need that comma. Probably not all the time. All right, then this one is probably my favorite. It's the most advanced of the embedding techniques, and it's when you make a quotation part of your own sentence without any punctuation between your own words and the words you're quoting. You literally just make it part of your sentence. And so that would usually mean quoting a smaller portion of text, which is almost always what you need to do. That's actually the 4th thing on this. And like I said, I am going to post this document on. It's linked on this Hyperdoc, but I'll put it in the classroom as well so that you can take a look at it. But you need to try to use short quotations, only a few words as part of your sentence. The reason that we quote is to support our claims. Quotes support our claims. They don't fill space, though I know that we've all used them that way before. You're not using them just because Miss Allen said, put 3 quotations in here. You're using them because when you quote, you are giving credence to your argument because you are showing that other people support what you support and that you're not just crazy. So quotes serve a purpose. We overquote. If you're quoting sentences and sentences and sentences, huge sentences, you need to look at it and say, am I quoting the most important part or am I just putting it all down trying to fill space? Quote the meat that you need to get from the quotation, not all of it. And so it gives you some great examples of this. And it says here, when you integrate quotations this way, you don't use any special punctuation. You punctuate the sentence exactly like it would if it were all your own sentence. Okay, and it gives you some exact examples of that in this. This, to me, like when I see students doing this, those are my advanced students. Those are my students who are really grappling with how to use text, right? And so practice that today on the assignment. If you're not really very comfortable with that, see if you can make it work. Then they have a little section here, notice the punctuation, exclamation point. I am not going to read through this, but it does talk about colons and semicolons, right? The semicolon is one of my favorite punctuation marks. I am indeed nerdy enough to have a favorite punctuation mark, but it's probably my favorite one. I think it makes incredibly advanced, beautiful, symmetrical sentences. It's a great way to have parallelism, but it can do great evil, friends. The semicolon is a punctuation mark of great evil. If you are not careful, it will create fragments. It will create a mess. So use it sparingly and don't use it at all to introduce a quotation. That's not a thing. Okay. It also talks about question marks and exclamation marks and where they would go and when you might actually have 2 punctuation marks. It gets a little ticky there. Ticky is one of my words, just means it's a little bitty thing, but it can make a big difference in your writing. So read through this, notice the punctuation section. And then it says the proper punctuation, keeping it simple. And it's going to go through just some rules, some really, really basic rules about what you need to do. And that's pretty helpful. And then it gives you this great video that is going to go over blending quotations. So I highly suggest that you watch that. I'm not going to watch it with you. The biggest point that I need all of you AP students to hear is this one up here. You should never have a quotation standing alone as a complete sentence. In this class, for grading purposes, standalone quotations, floating quotations automatically mean you cannot make an A. You're going to make a 3, not a 4. Okay. You can, of course, revise it to a 4. Okay. But it is not exceeding at a AP level to have a standalone quotation. So let's please, please, please avoid these. All right, so today, when you get to your getting to know you activity, you're going to be working with a song. And I'm not going to tell you about that whole activity yet because you can look at it in a minute, but you're going to be writing about a song that has real meaning to you. I am a lover of music. I think music is probably one of the most fantastic things in the whole world. I love all kinds of music. I love to see shows and to do, I listen to music constantly. But this activity is going to ask you to choose one song, and you are going to have to quote from it in what you're writing. And so it's a time to practice quotations. So I would love for you to practice some of these new things. Like if you're pretty good with introducing the quotation, then why don't you try to use, make the quote part of a sentence, or why don't you try to use some short quotations, or why don't you try to switch things up a little bit? Because that's going to be the way to grow as far as your writing goes. So I've made a little example. Now, my example is not the same as yours because you're writing an example of why the song is meaningful to you. And I am going to actually write one of those as well. But the example I want to show you right now is not that. The example that I'm using right now is actually analytical. I'm analyzing a song for its meaning, and I'm using quotes to support the meaning of the song. So with no further ado, I'm going to look at my song analysis and just talk you through some of what I did with embedding text. Okay. So here is my analysis of a very important song in the American song canon, Baby Got Back. All right, so let's take a look at the way that I embedded Sir Mix-a-Lot's amazing words into a text of my own. All righty, in the song Baby Got Back, and the reason I have that in quotes is that songs go in quotes. We always want to make sure we use correct punctuation with titles. Sir Mix-a-Lot tries to convince the audience that he likes big butts and he cannot lie. Okay, let's look at a couple of things that I did here. So notice that since I am making it part of my own sentence, at this point it's the end of my sentence, I don't need a comma here because I'm not saying he says. I use the word that, and so I don't need a comma. Okay. Also notice here that I've changed it to he and put it in brackets. Okay. The reason I changed it to he is because in the actual song, what does he say? He says I like big butts and I cannot lie. But since I'm writing in third person, I am changing it to he, but I'm putting it in brackets so that I know. Can you make changes like that? Yes. You can change pronouns. You can change tenses of verbs, right? You can add words for clarity. Okay. You just can't change the meaning of the sentence. Like I couldn't add a word in and say, like I couldn't change likes to hates, right? I couldn't change the meaning. But if I need to change the verb tense or if I need to change the pronoun, I absolutely can do that. So again, he tries to convince the audience that he likes big butts and he cannot lie. All right, and I have the period inside the quotes because that's what you do. The punctuation always goes inside the quotes. Okay, he begins by directly stating that he likes them round and big. Okay, so I put a quote in the middle of the sentence, right? I don't need a comma here because I am making it part of my sentence. I added an S because like I told you before, you can change the tense of the verb. I need to make the sentence grammatically correct. So if I have to change the verb tense to do that, I can. Okay, so I know that it's a quote because I have it in quotes. So stating that he likes them round and big. Okay, and I have to put a comma here because I need a comma grammatically, right? Because I have an and in a complete sentence. So the reason the comma is there is because grammatically I'm using a compound sentence and I need it. And notice that the comma goes where? Inside the quotation marks. All right, and that despite the fact that magazines say flat butts are the thing and that Cosmo says you're fat, he is a different sort of man who ain't down with that. Okay, so I put a bunch of quotes in this. Really too many, but the point is I'm trying to illustrate a point to you, so I used a lot of quotes in here. But notice how I make it all a flowing part of my own sentence. I do not give Sir Mix-a-Lot an entire sentence of my paper. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I integrate, embed his words into mine. And again, I'm using evidence to prove that his claim is that he likes big butts and he cannot lie. Okay, notice this here, okay, right here. I have 2 punctuation marks. I have an exclamation point and a period. Why? Okay, the reason why is the entire sentence is not an exclamation. I do not want to exclaim that entire sentence. It is very long. It would be very hard to exclaim that sentence. That is not an exclamation. It is I've just lost it. It is a declarative sentence, right? It's just saying something. So it doesn't need an exclamation point. It needs a period. But he ain't down with that. Like, he's fired up about it. So, right, he needs the exclamation point there. So that's why you have 2 punctuation marks. Can you do that? Yes. Okay, only with the exclamation point and with the question mark. And on that other sheet, there was some rules with that. All right. In addition to complimenting large posteriors directly, he is also sure to disparage smaller hindquarters. And now I started the sentence with a quotation. Can you do that? Yes. It's tricky. It doesn't always sound good. But yes, I want you to see from this masterpiece that I wrote that you can embed text at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. And then I want you to do all of them. Okay? It sounds good to vary it. So, beanpole dames in magazines hold no interest for Mr. Mix-a-Lot. In fact, he continually insults them, stating that the slender women of rock videos are knock-kneed bimbos walking like hoes, and that even white boys prefer larger haunches. All right, so, we have a wonderful simile here. And you can see that I embedded quotations 2 different places. Can you do that? Absolutely, you can do that, right? You can use the text as much as you want to in something like this. All right, so I'm continuing on. Remember, all of these are parts of an argument. I'm arguing that the whole point of Mr. Mix-a-Lot's song is that he likes large rear ends. And so I'm pulling examples from his song to prove my claim is correct. Now, obviously, this is obvious, okay? It's an obvious claim, but I think this shows you the way that quotes work and also the way a pretty simplistic argument works. All right, he applauds women of the world who want to get healthy, supporting their side bends and sit-ups, but he begs them to please don't lose that butt. Notice, comma, in quotes, and the reason I need a comma is not because the quote ends, but because I have a compound sentence, okay? And notice the period inside the quotation marks. All right. Through all of these examples, the artist of this song persuades the audience that he appreciates large derrieres. Now, I did use a semicolon, but I love them, so I can do that. All right. Again, through all these examples, the artist of this song persuades the audience that he appreciates large derrieres. In fact, he celebrates them, telling the large-bottomed women of the world to shake it, shake it, shake that healthy butt, right? And so you have here the same thing that you needed before. I have an exclamation, but it's actually a sentence, so I end with the period. All right, this is just an example. And it is an example just to show you that you can embed text in a lot of different ways. Don't be nervous. I know a lot of you heard me say you can't get a 4 if you don't embed your text. Correct. You can always revise. You can always revise. Revising is learning. Okay, so don't stress about that. Also, if you will try to embed and mess it up, you could still get a 4 because you've tried. You're showing me, I see I can't do that. Okay, and I can help you get better if I see the mistakes you're making. Okay, but please start paying attention to embedding text and have fun with your assignments today. Obviously, you're going to be doing an assignment that's a little more serious because you're going to talk about a song that you love. And instead of your claim being what the song means, your claim is going to be why the song is meaningful. And you'll support it with quotations and your own anecdotal evidence. So I hope that this makes some sense. Any questions that you have, always feel free to email me. Let me know you're having trouble and I'll be glad to help you out. Have a good one.